As promised, here's a quick overview of how to develop web apps into this sbmApps framework. And as you'll find out, it's really not a framework, it's just a library that can help you do things on the client side, but you really don't have to use it. So let's start with the code. The code is in the file fib.js. You can find it right here. Take a note of the URL where the application is being delivered. So let's have a quick look at the code first. You can of course develop it any way you want. This is the way I did it. I created a anonymous function, and within the function declare a number of variables, use them, and at the end nothing is left. There is no variable left in the root of the document object model from this execution. So the first thing I do is create a string, call it age, and just dump regular HTML on it. I break it into pieces just out of convenience. There is no other reason for it. And then I have a few lines that we need to spend a little time on. So this is the lines where I probe the environment where this app is running to make sure I'm delivering it using the right pointers. So the first question is this running in an environment where the client-side object sbmApps is available? If it is available, I'm going to make use of the render method and just render this HTML straight into the vision of the App Store where this is supposed to be. Otherwise, I'm going to create a variable dv, which is a division. So I'm creating a DOM element, and within for that division element, I'm going to insert the HTML, inner HTML, and then I append that division into the body of the document. Next section is a few stylist embellishments. This is the Fibonacci number generator itself. So this is a fairly straightforward piece of code. Takes two input arguments, the number of points in the series and the seed for the Fibonacci number array. If n is not provided, n equals to 10 will be used by default. If x is not provided, the seed 0, 1 will be used. Then the code itself, so this is the array, and I'm going to push the sum of the last two elements until the length of the array is bigger than n. Then return the final series. So this is a recursive implementation of the Fibonacci number generator. So recalling that we have a number of DOM elements here with IDs like fib button and fib length and fib seed, which will now allow us to use these to create event listeners, or to use event listeners like onClick and react to them. Okay, enough talking, let's have a look at the code while being executed. So this is the straightforward deployment of the application. I'm going to open the code on the side so we can follow the execution of the code. So you see here, let's start in the beginning. We have an H3 Fibonacci generator. So the question is, where is the figure? Let's go back to the code. The figure, as you probably guessed, is specified in the HTML. So we are looking here at a very straightforward app development example. There's nothing in the header. The body has an image with a link to the App Store, and then you call your code. That's it. Nothing else. So now that we have all of these elements with the interaction, we can start generating the arrays. When the number gets to be bigger than a certain value, it means that we push the limits of our number type, and it's reseeded at 0, 1. You can of course change these values and restart the process. You can also change this value here. And there we are. Okay, so all is good here. Let's make sure we know where everything is coming from. Very straightforward. Index HTML. The Fibonacci file here. And that's it. This is calling the image itself, and there's nothing else. No frameworks, no embellishments, nothing. Alright, so we just went over the full external deployment example. Now let's move to something I'm calling the easy external. So what happens in easy external is that we are going to load the sbmApps, which we are kind of describing here as a little framework type of application. So now the head calls for this library, and then by using, so this is the head of the HTML document, excuse me, then we have the body, and within the body we call the sbmApps, which is the object coded here, and the method external app. Now there is a little novelty here, is that I'm going to use your manifest to assemble the app outside the App Store. So this would be an example of what is described here, of an external application assembly by using the external app method of the sbmApps object. Since we are making use of a new file, sbm manifest, let's have a look at it. So you could call it anything you want, of course. I call it sbm manifest rather than manifest.json, just to make a distinction from the W3C manifest.json for web apps. So it's just a piece of JSON with the following attributes: name, description, icon, and on-click. So the name of the app, what it does, the URL to the picture you want to show it as an icon, and then what happens when one clicks on the image. And of course, in this case, is run the Fibonacci code. Let's run it now. In the beginning, let's open the developer tools so we can see it. So as you can tell, easy is the only HTML file being loaded, but the sbmApps object was loaded from here. So we have this object there now. We didn't before. Before was just a raw application, making no use of sbmApps at all. On that note, it's useful to go back and understand how a raw application with no frameworks at all would be integrated into the sbmApps store. So as you may recall, the image has a link, and this link is exactly where this linkage is made. So if I click on the image, I go to the App Store, and I have the Fibonacci app revealed. There it is. I could do the same thing. Notice now we are back to the App Store. Going back. No App Store at all. Okay, back to the easy deployment now. So what we see here is that the image, or the feeling of this environment, is very similar to the one we get with the embedded app. And the reason is that the external app method, which you find here at the end of the code, if you're curious, external app, is loading the same jQuery and Bootstrap libraries that the regular App Store uses to deal with the form factor of the device, the orientation, and so on. So what this method does is loads those scripts, those libraries, and then loads the manifest and it goes from there. So if you go back to the HTML page itself, so the easy HTML, you see that that's exactly the method we are calling external app, and the input argument is the URL of the manifest. Once assembled, the same code does the same thing, except the button now looks blue and things look a little more composed. Let's now go back to the last model, which is when the application is embedded in the store and it's delivered as an embedded app. So there we are. I'm going to open the developer tools again, and once I open it, you see that now we have a number of other files that the App Store needs, like at risk, the icons, and so on, the sbmApps themselves, and now the application is the middle of all of this profusion of files. One of them will be the sbmApp. So it's probably going to be somewhere. So sbmIT, apps, Fibonacci, there it is. So our little file is still here. It's still behaving the way it should be. Everything looks composed. There we are. And if you click on the picture, we go straight back to the original store. I'm going to do this one more time, and then we'll compare the embedded app with the easy external app model. So click here, notice the feel and look. Okay, so now let's compare this with the external application. You see that it's a lot fewer things are being loaded, but the feeling is actually very much the same. I still go back to the apps. And the behavior of the external app is indistinguishable from the embedded app. Alright, so let's one last time go over the summary of what we overviewed here. Are fully external, where sbmApps is never even loaded. Easy external, where we are using the external app method to read from the manifest what needs to be done to assemble the app. So the external app method is using the manifest to do all the heavy duty work for you. And finally, the embedded app, where you're always in the same domain. You're just pushing and taking different elements from the same division of the App Store.